In the last episode, we learned about the hidden symbolic roles of Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump. We learned that Charlie was the opening act in a grand replay of Christ's crucifixion that unbelievably moved in reverse, backward through time 24 years to 9/11. A crucifixion that itself represented the death of the United States, the great Satan. Well, that just sounds crazy, doesn't it? If you've just joined this series at this point, you are likely ready to click to the next video. With respect, that would be a mistake, because this episode will be the most amazing so far. In fact, let me show you something that is absolutely astounding and serves to dutifully link us back to 9/11. There were 4 aircraft that were allegedly hijacked on 9/11. Flight 11 allegedly hit the North Tower in New York. Flight 175 allegedly hit the South Tower. And Flight 77 allegedly struck the Pentagon. The 4th plane, Flight 93, was the subject of an alleged passenger revolt that failed. That plane allegedly struck the ground around Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I say allegedly because there was no sign of a plane crash at all. Like something out of the Exodus, the ground basically just opened up and swallowed the plane whole. Once again, the laws of physics didn't apply. Once again, a supernatural miracle appeared, like magic bullets and bodies of steel. Well, that's the official story anyway. And the elite collectively sit back and laugh, because they are telling you the real truth, but you are so fixated on the story playing on the surface that you totally ignore their real message. They laugh at how stupid the Goyim can be, which just inflates their narcissistic views that the chosen are the master race. The 9/11 incident was Hollywood theater on a level that was unprecedented, even for Mossad, exceeding even the Man on the Moon Apollo missions. People actually believed that 2 steel-framed buildings could be taken down by a few small fires and the impact of an aircraft, even though the buildings were specifically designed to withstand such an impact. They actually believed the 2 buildings could fall from the top down in exactly the same manner within minutes of each other at near freefall speed and have a sizable portion of their mass magically disappear, being pulverized into fine dust, including the steel in the process. And then, a few hours later, a 3rd building, not hit by any aircraft, sympathetically fell in standard controlled demolition fashion. What makes it all so amazing is that it was theater that was performed on the first take, with no errors or failures. Talk about planning. For mere humans to have accomplished something so perfect and so involved, well, I don't know if such a thing has ever been done before. Even the best-laid military plans experience some parts that fail. Humans have accidents all the time. We are fallible beings. Equipment fails all the time. And yet, everything magically worked on 9/11. Yes, I can be appalled and yet admire what it took to make it happen. But what about Flight 93? Couldn't that be classified as a part that failed? Nope. Everything worked to perfection that day. Everything. Even Flight 93. Those events had to have somehow been gamed by truly advanced AI systems to work to such precise perfection. Or we were receiving help from an advanced intelligence, as presented in Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey. And not to digress too much, did you know that Stanley Kubrick died 666 days prior to January 1, 2001, the very day a mysterious obelisk, just like the one in his movie, showed up in Seattle? I'm sure it was all nothing more than a coincidence, or a prank. In any event, we now know that Flight 93 wasn't a failure, but was actually part of the elaborate narrative they were weaving, an enigmatic element that served as a landmine for later. As we will see, the media, the government, and Turning Point USA have overtly tried to paint Charlie Kirk as a Christ following his death. They have even introduced the concept of miracles to explain how his body allegedly seized a bullet traveling 2,700 feet per second and kept it from escaping and hurting others. But if that's the case, if Charlie was being deified as a Christ, why didn't Charlie's age match Christ's age and reveal the sacred 33 like everywhere else in this event? First of all, I don't believe Christ died at 33. I believe he died at 46, 33 years after coming of age at 13, but that's the topic for another time. In Charlie's case, however, he was meant to represent the vaunted biblical third part in a different way. He was meant to represent Flight 93 because Charlie was 31, and 31 is 1/3 of 93, just like 33 is 1/3 of the whole. There were allegedly 33 passengers on Flight 93, and the place where they allegedly met their fate was near a town called Shanksville, Pennsylvania. There is much symbolism in that name, because to shank a ball is to hit it with the heel of the club, forcing it to veer in the wrong direction. This is important. It refers to changing directions, in particular to reversing course. Another definition is that shank refers to the latter or remaining part, especially of a period of time. This could tend to imply that there was a part that remained to this event, the shank of the day, as if it had yet to play. And finally, shank is also a term used to describe a weapon formed from something other than for what it was originally designed. But to what sort of weapon might they be referring? I believe the key to this event, the Flight 93 portion of the 9/11 incident, can be found in the memorial created to honor it. Specifically, the memorial is in the form of the crescent moon and was called the Crescent of Embrace. The first phase of that memorial was completed, opened, and dedicated on 10 September 2011. Not 9/11, 9/10, the very day of Charlie's alleged murder 14 years later. Why? Not only that, a visitor center opened on 10 September 2015, 4 years later, and once again, 10 years to the day prior to Charlie Kirk's alleged murder. Yet again, why not perform the dedications on the anniversary of 9/11? Why do it a day early on 9/10? Most people thought that this memorial represented Islam and was, therefore, a slap in the face to Americans and a pat on the back to the alleged Islamic extremist that supposedly attacked America. I'll admit, I only recently figured this out while performing research for this video series. The truth is, that memorial actually represents those 3 solar eclipses in 2017, 2023, and 2024 over the United States that were part of that crucifixion began by Charlie Kirk in the future and moving backward in time. This can be proven by the fact that the motion of the moon to eclipse the sun is in a V from right to left. In other words, it drops down from the right, steals the light of the sun, and then rises to the left. I'm sure real scientists can explain this way better than I can. Anyway, if you look at this image and notice the treeless area to the right side, it forms a perfect path for the moon to either drop down to the memorial and then rise along the flight path of Flight 93, or vice versa. Likely the latter, if looking up. Just like what happens during an eclipse. But not only that, the memorial was strategically placed by the Freemasonic Judaic Cabal right next to a crescent-shaped lake, with the curve bending in the opposite direction, as if it was a mirrored image. Since the crescent in the memorial represents fire during the eclipse, the lake provides the balance, the mirrored opposite, fire and water. This was not an accident, and it didn't just happen because terrorists crashed it into the ground in a seemingly random location. This was intricate planning, from the name to the geography. They already knew the memorial that they would construct long before the theater of Flight 93 was even invented. This is how the elite use and abuse all of us. You need to wake up to this simple fact. So the answer to why the Flight 93 memorial dedication was held on 9/10 instead of 9/11 was to directly link it to Charlie Kirk as the source, the opening act of the crucifixion of the United States that moved backward in time to 9/11. This supposition is confirmed by the fact that one of the 3 solar eclipses took place on Charlie Kirk's 30th birthday. Clearly, this memorial design referenced the eclipses and thus directly referenced the date of birth of Charlie Kirk, the middle eclipse. Imagine these 3 eclipses to be analogous to the 3 crucified that included Christ, who was typically portrayed in the middle, just like Charlie. Likewise, the memorial referenced the date of death of Charlie Kirk in its dedications, his date of birth and his date of death. This is not an accident, people. Sound crazy? Do you know that there were allegedly 2 crash sites for Flight 93 that were 6 to 8 miles apart? Reporters at the time asked why alleged debris would be found so far away. They speculated that the hijackers allegedly had a bomb on board. No, that's not it. There were 2 crash sites to represent the 2 eclipses in 2017 and 2024. The first and the last, which served as boundary markers for the 3 eclipses that were literally 6 years and 7 months apart, just like crash sites 6 to 8 miles apart. Space becomes time, the mirror opposite. Clearly, changing direction, as represented by Shank and Shanksville, refers to time itself changing direction. So, was the moon the weapon, or was it the eclipse itself? The sun and moon working in concert? Is that how they modified time and shanked it to move into another direction? Let's not forget that the Bible states that the sun and moon were halted in the sky for an entire day to allow the Israelites to more fully avenge themselves upon the Amorites. So such a thing has happened in the past, modifying time to allow the chosen to engorge themselves. It should also be noted that the 2017 eclipse took place in the first year of Trump's first presidency, while the 2024 eclipse took place in the year of the 2024 election, in which Trump would win his second presidency. Specifically, the 2017 eclipse took place 213 days after Trump took office, while the 2024 eclipse took place 212 days prior to Trump being named the winner of the 2024 election. These are mirror locations in time. Do you really think that these events just coincidentally happened? We are talking about 2 eclipses over the United States within 7 years of each other that conspired to form a cross. We are even talking about 3 eclipses over the United States that conspired to form a triangle. The 2017 eclipse took place 33 weeks into the year, while precisely 33 calendar weeks separate 21 August, the date of the 2017 eclipse, from 8 April, the date of the 2024 eclipse, something that can only happen during a leap year, which is what 2024 was. And then, for Charlie Kirk, a character whose birthday landed on the date of the middle eclipse, to be allegedly shot 33 weeks and 3 days inclusive after Trump takes office again. Do you understand how incredibly impossible it would be for all of these aspects linked to eclipses to so precisely line up? Do you think that this was all just random chance? No. We are seeing the incredible manipulation of both time and the course of the moon and the course of human events. There's simply no other way around it. The sheer power displayed at manipulating the environment, the game itself, is staggering to behold. It goes beyond the ability of fallible humans. This is an incredibly intricate and overt fertility ritual. You may blithely dismiss the astrological aspects of these eclipses, but they abounded on 9/11. The events of that day occurred 11 weeks after the start of summer, 11 days before the start of fall, 101 days before the start of winter, and 111 days before the end of the year. This was an extremely auspicious date. And the date that they opened the Flight 93 Visitor Center was 1 year, 11 months, and 11 days, or 101 weeks, prior to the 2017 Great Eclipse. Remember, 93 is a trinity of 31s, the age of Charlie Kirk, and 31 is the 11th prime. Those 3 11s sum to a hidden 33. Do you really think some alleged terrorist bothered to choose that particular day because they love 11s? No. The aspect of time is being shown here. Time is a key element on display, especially with Charlie Kirk's alleged murder. Again, this is an incredibly intricate fertility ritual. But how does Flight 93 link to Charlie being painted as a Christ? There were 2 very important differences about Flight 93 on the morning of 9/11, as compared with the so-called successful attacks. First, it was the only one of the 4 hijacked planes that was destined for San Francisco. All others were headed for Los Angeles. And second, there were only 4 hijackers on board, while 5 allegedly boarded the other 3 planes. This latter point tends to imply that someone was missing. It implies that there was another part to come. As mentioned earlier when I spoke of the shank of the day, the remaining part. The role of the 5th hijacker wouldn't come until later, until after the events portrayed in the memorial came to pass, the 3 eclipses. I believe that Charlie Kirk was the final 5. Fans of the Battlestar Galactica reboot will get the meaning. He was allegedly killed 17 months after the 2024 eclipse, and the number 17 was rife during 9/11. But what about Flight 93 being destined for San Francisco? That was revealing who was coming. That was revealing Charlie Kirk's fate. You see, San Francisco was named for St. Francis of Assisi, a man that was reportedly the first to bear the bleeding wounds of Christ, known as stigmata, and who was also credited with the creation of the nativity scene. Even a blind man can see that this refers to the beginning and ending of the life of Christ, which itself refers to Christ in its entirety. It was referencing someone that would take on the mantle of Christ, Charlie Kirk. This is why Charlie was painted as Christ after his alleged murder. And of course, Charlie was born 33 calendar days after 9/11, with again 33 referring to the age of Christ at death. Charlie, Christ, 9/11, they are all inextricably linked. And not only that, there is one more important symbolic aspect to that crescent of embrace memorial to Flight 93 that directly links to Christ. You see, not only does that crescent shape mimic the eclipses, it also mimics the typical simplistic view of Christ's tomb, with a stone partially rolled away, as if referencing the resurrection. This is our first taste of a theme which will become rife throughout this series. That theme is resurrection. Spoiler, I believe that they will reintroduce Charlie Kirk as a resurrected Christ, as insane as that sounds right now. By the end of our journey, the evidence for that statement should become overwhelming. What if we had even more proof that Flight 93 was linked to Charlie Kirk and events of today? We were told at the time that Flight 93 was likely destined for the Capitol, or perhaps even the White House. Vice President Dick Cheney later confirmed the narrative by stating it was definitely intended for the White House. Well, did you happen to notice what happened right after the alleged assassination of Charlie Kirk? Donald Trump began systematically destroying the entire East Wing of the White House, essentially performing the original role of Flight 93, essentially boldly and openly completing the work began on 9/11 covertly by likely both the United States government and Israel. Hell, even the word wing harkens back to a bird or an aircraft, doesn't it? But not even an aircraft crashing into it would be so thorough as Trump's destruction. Hauntingly, as we saw earlier, when asked by a reporter how he was doing after Charlie Kirk's death, Trump replied, "Very good," and then he directed the attention of the mindless press to the work on his new ballroom, which was why the East Wing had to be demolished. Is it a ballroom or a ballroom? Whether intentional or not, this was a way of linking Kirk's death to the destruction of the East Wing. This was a way of showing that Charlie Kirk, symbolically and literally, completed the role of Flight 93 on 9/11 as the missing fifth man. Do you fully comprehend what we are seeing here, my fellow souls? This is a plan that has been in operation for hundreds of years. The elite oligarchs, armed with the sacred knowledge of the chosen, have manipulated all of this into being. You need to seriously begin to understand and accept that we are seeing sci-fi level technology and knowledge being employed before our eyes. This means that anything is possible. Even a crucifixion of the United States playing in reverse, backward in time, to 11 September 2001. That was the moment that the United States died. If you found this topic interesting, then please check out my other videos and my books. My website is www.mastersofthemirror.com. Thanks.